What is the most efficient way to unlock legendary equipment in War and Order? Today I'm going to review the 4 strategies and help you unpack which one you should be doing and why. This is really important to understand, and I'm going to back it up with some math. And there is more math to do, so if you're a mathematician, definitely get in contact with me. And let's get started on the best approach for getting your legendary equipment. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming and this video is sponsored by the makers of War and Order. And this is going to be a very detailed guide helping you figure out when you should go for legendary equipment, the other considerations like how to handle your enhancements, and what the best approaches are backed up by math to get the kind of results you want. Legendary gear, baby. And I did some gambling and I got luck, and I did some gambling and I got unlucky. And you gotta avoid looking at comments, even though I love when people leave comments and they're like, I gambled once and I got legendaries, let's go. Because the chances of that are low, and all the people who get that will all brag, and all the people who get wrecked probably just sit there quietly in the corner pouting because they got wrecked. So there's a little bit of availability heuristic there, but let's not talk about psychology. Let's talk about your equipment. There will be timestamps in the description. This will be a longer video, so navigate to whichever part you want, because I promise you the stuff that's in this video is good. And if there's anything that could be better, leave a comment down below. I want to hear, especially if you can do that more detailed math. I'll talk about exactly what kind of model I want to run in a bit. But first, let's talk about things in the following order. First, when do you make legendary gear? What's the best time to go make this gear? Second of all, what about enhancement and how does that influence your decision? Third of all, what should you do before even making a single legendary piece? And I wish I had done this. I didn't. I regret it very deep. Number 4 is going to be the actual best strategies and which one you should use with the math. So let's start with, when do you go for legendary equipment? Very simply, I think C30 is where it's at. That's the point where it's slow enough for doing your castle upgrades. Even if you have 1,000,000 farms, it's gonna take a while. You're gonna be here a long time. You will actually accumulate the materials to go make legendaries. So I think the sweet spot is C30. Probably not before that. Before that, especially if you're not spending, you're probably using blues and epics, and that's the win, and take those wins, baby. They're good. Get to the epic gear. In fact, I rushed even just some epic gear to C30 because we are in a state of constant civil war. So any day, anytime I could get hit, I need the best now that I can get now. And that's important for your considerations on which approach to use. I'll talk about those approaches in just a minute. The other thing that's really important that we have to talk about before we even talk about the approaches that you use is going to be freaking enhancements. And I wish that someone had sat me down and looked me in the eye and said, Chisgule, don't you dare enhance anything until you understand this, until you can repeat this back to me. Don't you dare. Don't enhance anything. I want you to understand, when you hit C30, Chisgule, you hearing me, Chisgule? You hearing me? When you hit C30, okay, you need to understand that the approach you take for getting your legendary equipment is going to change a lot if you recast over and over trying to get enhancements you really want. Now, if you're like, bro, what the hell is an enhancement? I don't know what you're talking about. Once you hit somewhere around, I think it's C26, maybe C25, you can enhance your equipment. And basically you are randomly putting bonus stats on your equipment, which sounds cool unless you randomly get the wrong stat, like golem attack. F that, nobody wants that. So what do you have to do? Use obsidian steel to recast and get a different thing. The problem is that if you have equipment that already has enhancements that you really like, it will pin you down into certain approaches for getting to legendary equipment that are not as efficient. This is important to understand. So if I were telling myself all over again what to do, it's really hard to say. Like, we are in a constant state of civil war. Having the better stats has been relevant to me. And it was relevant to me from whatever castle level it was to I got my enhancements to now. It's been good. I needed the things that I had, okay? I could have got by without them. Sure, okay. So the cost to me was obsidian steel to get the stats now, and now it is materials for doing certain upgrades for the things where I really want to keep the enhancements that I have. Because one of the strategies we're going to be sort of talking about is gambling up a new piece of gear. And I can't transfer this enhancement, if I really like it, onto some other piece of gear. I can upgrade this piece, but I can't transfer an enhancement I already have. Okay, that's very, very, very important to understand. With all that out of the way, the thing I wish I had told myself before I freaking laid down a single gosh blessed material toward legendaries. Are you ready? You're not gonna like this, but you're gonna do it because you need to do this if you want value, and you're here for value. It's making a damn spreadsheet. What I want you to do is to map out the materials required for every single piece of gear you're gonna make at C30 that is not yet legendary and at C35. okay? Because to make a piece of legendary gear and get a guaranteed result, what people typically do is they just use all legendary materials. That's the only way to get a guaranteed result. So you upgrade your gear to legendary at C30, and then at C35, you know you're using 100% legendary materials. Okay, this is important to understand. But for the gambling you're going to do, there's a little trick that's going to be super, super critical, and I'm going to talk about it. So knowing which materials you don't need for future stuff, but can still use right now is very important. And I have mapped that out for the things at C30 that I still need to flip legendary, and for things before C30. This was also important because, well, I'll explain the technique in just a minute. So just mapping out your needs and knowing, oh gosh, like if I use cloth or I use crystal, I'm going to F myself later. I don't want to screw myself later. I want to be well positioned. Then you need to focus on using up the materials, and I've highlighted in yellow for me the things at C30 I can leverage that I won't need as much of later, and really take advantage of the fact that I just don't need them later, but I can use them now, okay? So I'm setting myself up for success. Wish I had done this before. This is crucial to the strategies. Let's get into the 4 strategies now, shall we? Strategy number 1 is just using all legendaries. Forget what you see on the screen. Just everything's legendary from the beginning, all the way from the lowest level to level 30. That is going to take you 24 legendaries to guarantee, no questions asked, 100% shot, all the way up, you got a legendary. But let's say you're using gear you already have and you don't want to go that route, which is what I did. One thing you can consider is using all legendary materials with an epic piece in the middle. Now, when I did that, and I'll show you the math, it's about 50-50. It's not quite. It actually technically favors you. It's like 52.5% chance that you get the legendary and 50% chance you get the epic. When is that a good strategy? When you have an enhancement you want to keep. That is probably the best strategy. Let me say that again. If you have an enhancement you want to keep and it's top tier, then probably your best bet is to, you don't even have to watch necessarily the rest of the video, but it's probably just to throw an epic in there, in the middle, the epic you already have, okay, the epic equipment, and all legendary pieces. It's 6 legendary pieces, and it's about 50-50. You roll the dice, you hope for the best. I tried that. I got wrecked on this chest piece. I got wrecked. F's in the chat. A lot of legendaries, didn't get the outcome. So what are the other approaches? What you see on the screen is actually the other approach, and I'll take a piece off to show this to you in full. Here it is, okay? You use 1 legendary and 5 epics. Now, this is kind of curious. Why would you do this route? This route, you can leverage what I was talking about earlier. Your chances of success are actually much lower, and mathematically, I will prove to you that this is an inferior route from a probability standpoint, but a superior route in terms of controlling which materials you burn, because the chance of getting a legendary is 12.7%, and there's an 87% chance you get an epic back, which kind of, I mean, sure, you still have an epic, and if you're upgrading a piece that you already have, okay, you can go this route of using 1 legendary material. The disadvantage is that it is, strictly speaking, less likely to flip over. You are likely to use more materials going this route than going for the 50-50. I'll talk about that. I'll show you the math. But the advantage is you can take materials like this one that I know I don't need and use less of the other materials that I know I will need later. And that makes this a sort of interesting approach. The final strategy is to actually take a blue piece of gear. Let's take this Heart of Carlos. I have one ready. I will craft in this video, by the way. And what you do is you say, you know what? I'm going to use all blues, all blues, all blues, all blues, and 1 legendary. Now the weirdness is that you might get an epic and you might get a legendary. You're going for the legendary, but if you get the epic, technically I think you can dismantle it and get back more materials than if you got the blue. So I think the strategy here, and I still need to play around with this some more and look at the materials returned if I get a level 30 blue, but I think the strategy here is that you keep using the blue item over and over. If it flips epic and you already have an epic at level 30, then what you would do is dismantle it, and then you got to build back up a blue item. And if you get the legendary, you win. And the reason I would say you dismantle if you get an epic is because you've actually technically upgraded the item, and the return on materials is decent-ish, I think. And, you know, if you just keep doing it over and over, you could get just another blue item again. It could flip back to blue. So if you have the time to keep upgrading up pieces to go gamble with, it might be more material efficient to dismantle the epic you get out of the picture. But again, the advantage of this strategy is that you're using more of a material that you do not care about to get the item that you really want, which sets you up for future success. That's really important. Okay, Chisgule, but what are the odds? Okay, I made a detailed spreadsheet to come up with these odds, all right? And let me show you what's here. On the left is the number of attempts that it takes. The next column is the legendary materials cumulative. So how many total materials have I spent? The next is the odds of success, getting the legendary. And the next is the cumulative chance of success. If you plan to do it 2 times, what's the % chance of success? And so on. So as an example, the first strategy I talked about of going for 1 epic quality equipment with all legendary materials has a 52.4% chance of flipping legendary. So on the first time you try it, you've got a 52.4% chance of success. Seems pretty good. If you plan to do it twice, right, you've got a 77.34% chance of success. If you do this 4 times, 95% of people are going to get a legendary and 5% of people will not. This is why I said technically going for all legendary materials and getting the guaranteed is more efficient because you are guaranteed to get your legendary, and some number of people are going to spend more materials. But the problem with this calculus is that it doesn't actually account for the fact that if you do this repeatedly, some number of times you're going to save materials and some number of times you're not. And so the question then becomes, if you account for how many materials you saved in the times when you win and average it out in the times that you lose, like what's the overall better outcome? And this is where if someone knows how to do the more detailed math here, wants to kind of like jump in, and I don't know what you need to do, like a Monte Carlo simulation or like some crazy, really detailed thing to like math out the possibility space of like how many people get wrecked over the course of 6 legendary things that you're trying to upgrade to, right? I think that would be really interesting to see. But either way, I probably wouldn't advocate for this strategy in a lot of cases, purely because of what I was talking about earlier. If you have a material you know you're not going to need later, then you want to try to use that up now, which leads you to one of the 2 other strategies I was talking about. And that is either on the left, using a blue base piece with 1 legendary material and 5 blue materials, or on the right, using an epic base piece and using 5 epic materials, right, and 1 legendary material. So the chances are actually better if you use the blue. And if I zoom in here, this coloring I probably need to change, but whew, okay, that's much better. You can actually read that now. At the same number of legendary materials, like 24 legendary materials, there's an 85% chance of success by using 5 blues, 1 legendary with the blue material, with the blue equipment, and there is an 80.4% chance of success. Same number of materials used, but going that route of all epics and 1 legendary. So the odds are actually better in terms of using less materials to get a sort of the same outcome by virtue of going with the blues and 1 legendary. Plus, if you get the epic, you can dismantle it, which might be worth, again, I have to look into that, but either way, both of these strategies, either one of them is going to be compelling to you in different situations. If you have an enhancement you want to keep, you're either going this route of the all epics with 1 legend or all legendaries. And I think the advantage of going with all epics 1 legend is you pick the 1 material you need the least of in the future, right? Burn through that material. Very, very efficient to go that route. And even better is probably to go with some of these blues. And that's what you do if you don't need the enhancement on the piece that you already have. You're just going to create up a new piece and hope for the best. So to show you exactly how that works, let me give it a shot right now. Here's the first piece that we're going to work on. I have recruitment speed here. It is pretty cool. I like recruitment speed. This is a piece I might want to hold on to for the long run when I eventually upgrade out of my C30 gear and into C35 gear. I don't know. I have to look at the blend of recruitment speed and what it looks like on future pieces of equipment. But all that to say, I don't really care about this enhancement. I really don't. I don't need to keep this. I want like some kind of damage boost or damage taken reduction or even like an attack stat, or I'd have to look at what's actually on here. But it ain't this, I'll tell you that. So I'm good creating new for this one because I don't care about that particular boost. So I can take any blue I want. I'll go to the blacksmith, and I already have made a blue that I don't care about. And I say I don't care about it because I used materials I don't care about to get it all the way up to level 25. So what I want is this piece here. You better pick the right piece. Then I'm going to go and I'm going to select the blue input. I'm going to drop down to all blue materials. And from my spreadsheet earlier, I know that this agate is not something I need much of in the future. Yeah, I need some, but I don't need a ton. So I can gamble with this and I can hope for the best. Okay, so this is going to give me the infantry defense, the recruitment speed up, and the march speed. And the reason that it's like a little bit weird to like hold on to that epic piece I had, by the way, with the recruitment enhancement is that like just flipping this to legendary is already going to give me a lot of really nice recruitment speed. So I don't know, man. It'd be a long-term hold, maybe. I just have to look into if that epic with recruitment speed, because it already has recruitment speed base, is kind of worth it after I get to C35. Whatever. That's not what you're here for. What you're here for is to see how this gamble goes. Chances are it's going to fail, okay? If it succeeds, big win. Fail is what you should expect. It takes a lot of attempts to get this to work. But here we go. First I have to speed up what's already in there. Let me try that all over again. Okay, now we're actually ready to hit the forge button. We're gonna smash this and see how it goes. Gosh bless. Please flip legendary. Please. Now, it doesn't actually flip when you hit forge, by the way. So here we go. You got to speed it up first and then claim it. And then and only then do you know. Okay, let's claim this thing and see. Oh, please. Please be legendary. Please. Come on. Epic again. Oh, it's the second time I got epic. F's in the chat. So that's a little bit of a bummer. I'll have to decide what I do with this. Is it dismantle it? And that's probably the case. I'll have to see once I've done this twice, and both times it turned into epic. Once I get a level 30 blue, I'll see what the dismantle material amount is and sort of make a call there. Okay, fine. That's fine. I'm not mad. Let's do another piece. Hey, we're gambling, right? The chances are low. Oh, and let me flip back to my other views. You don't have all this black screen here. GG, F's in the chat. Oh, so much better. Gosh darn it. I can't believe I left it in that other view. Whatever is what it is, and I'm not gonna take the craft out of the video, so can't edit that out. Here we go. I can do one more craft here. And what I'm gonna go for this time is the other piece where I don't really care about the enhancement. That's the belt. I mean, recruitment speed up's nice, but whatever. Let's see if we can put together the materials in the right way to go make a belt. Okay, here we are again. Bone is a material I don't need a ton of, so good to get rid of it. And the other materials, they're all blue, so I'm not using a ton of them by using this strategy. Seems good. This is the belt I want. Infantry attack, mage attack. I'm an inf mage player. Don't really care as much about the building speed, research speed. It's probably gonna flip blue. That's what happens most of the time. Let's hit forge, speed it up, and see if we get wrecked or not. Okay, here we go. Come on, please. For the video, it'd be pretty cool. It's gonna be blue. Okay, it's blue. Let me do the math real quick on breaking this down. In fact, I'll do it right here. You can see it. I got wrecked, is what it is. Equipment. If we scroll on down here, the number of materials I get for breaking down the level 30 blue is 43 greens, whereas the number of materials I get for breaking down this piece is 43 blues. I'm pretty sure it's worth it for me to break this down and then to just keep gambling with my level 30 belt and use that as a crafting material. Okay, so I think I just keep reusing this to craft, and I think if it flips epic, I go and recycle it and claim the materials. And, you know, it's a pain in the butt to go get a blue back to an appropriate level again to gamble with at 25, but you know what? I got time. I don't have materials, so is what it is. So to summarize the advantages of the different strategies, you can go the guaranteed legendary route, you can 50-50 gamble with legendary materials, or you can throw in one legendary material to gamble. Now, sometimes you can use one legendary and 5 epics. The advantage of that is for a piece you already have that you want to be epic or legendary. when you're first getting to C30, that's a good strategy. And you can also, if you map out the materials you need and don't need, use up materials you don't actually need as much of later, which will later feel like they were free to you, which that seems really, really good. On the flip side, if you don't actually have an enhancement you really like on the piece of gear, technically your odds are better. It's more efficient material-wise to do it with a blue, because some amount of time when you upgrade your 25 blue to something at 30, it might flip to blue, in which case you use it again as a crafting ingredient, or it flips epic, in which case, I think you break it down for the materials at that point. That might actually be a reasonable gain of sorts of materials. And if it goes legend, hooray, you've won. All right. Technically, your odds are better by virtue of throwing all legendary materials in. And I think on average, I think you end up using less materials, okay? But the downside is you're using all the materials that is listed. And the problem with that is that some you will care about more than others. And that will matter a lot later. And you can see, like, some of my materials are really drained now. And some of these I want to start to be able to accumulate. So anyways, materials are not in the best spot, but I just hit C30. All right, I'm still figuring all this out. If you found the math to be helpful, if you found the summary at the end to be helpful, do me a huge favor, throw a like on here. Consider subscribing to the channel for War and Order videos designed to help you get value and smash your enemies. I feel like this was a pretty comprehensive guide on how to approach this. For the record, I don't know if I mentioned this at the start, but I got both of those pieces that are legendary by gambling. In both cases, it was 5 epics, 1 legend to pull down those gambles. Huge wins. So I've already got huge wins. And I had a fail on, I think, I don't remember which piece it was. One of these pieces. Maybe it was the accessory. I used all legendary inputs except the epic equipment, and I got wrecked. Is what it is, right? I ended up with an epic instead of a legend. It was a 50-50. Technically a 52-48, but whatever. It's neither here nor there because I didn't get it. And that's the thing about gambling. Sometimes you get lucky and sometimes you don't. And what you'll see is that a lot of people who get lucky will all brag about how lucky they are, and all the people who get wrecked quietly hide in the corner and don't talk about their experience. So even though the majority of people get wrecked when they gamble, nobody talks about it because it's not very sexy. But it is really fun to talk about when you gamble one-off and win. And everybody who does that and gets it talks about it, so you see a lot of that. Anyways, I think this gave me, anyways, enough of a framework for how to think about all this stuff, because when I hit C30, it was confusing. So again, if you have found it helpful, throw a like on here, consider subscribing. And until next time, you have fun smashing your enemies.